Week 7 running backs. We have got the top. How many do we have? I've got the top 44. Let's see where we get here.
44.
Top 40-something running backs here for Week 7 of the fantasy football season. On today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we have the only rankings you will need to win in Week 7. Talking running backs here. I'm your host, Sean, joined by my good friend, fellow knower of ball, fellow co-host, Keegan Thompson. Cowboy Thompson, how we doing today, man?
Good. Feels good to be back in the saddle. I feel like, we just recorded our wide receiver episodes. And I'm like, did I miss like a full week or something? I feel like I've been out of commission. Yeah. So, it's obviously good to be back. We're talking ball. Football season is almost at the midway point already. But we're in week 7. Third of the way through. We're getting close. So, it's good. It's nice to see offense picking up back in the NFL. It feels like running backs are having some really good roles established. Some people are not, but we're going to sift through all of that today as we talk through the running back rankings.
You're totally right. Yeah, you were gone for like almost 10 days, it felt like. Yeah. And we just recorded receivers, which is in the feed. So that's in the feed. It came out Friday. We're dropping this Saturday. There were moments where I was like, oh, I need to pick up the hosting pace a little bit. I wasn't used to having the three of us back in the saddle. I'm guilty of that.
It gets distracting. We just like start talking because we want to talk ball. But, that's part of it. That's why people come to Regression to the Meat channel. So you can sit down, have a conversation with us, and enjoy your time.
So our episodes, when we do rankings, are pretty straightforward. I've ranked the top 44 running backs. I've broken them into 6 tiers. Keegan and I go tier by tier. We call out guys that were higher than and lower than, higher on versus higher on and lower than.
There you go. You got it.
Oh my goodness.
No, you got it. You got it.
We're keeping it in there. No one's perfect. I got to show my warts and all. Versus Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings. We just highlight some guys that we think are starts, guys we're kind of worried about. Potentially some questions that we're looking to get answered. Running back usage is pretty weird. We had the emergence of Sean Tucker last week, so it's kind of a weird landscape right now.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the running back rooms that I was hinting at here. That's kind of like getting a little murky, and then there's some other running back rooms that are clearing themselves out. Maybe Todd Downing has realized that Breece Hall is the go-to back. Let's hope. We could talk about that as well. But yeah, there's a lot of shifting going on in some running back rooms. Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, Breece, and New York, which I just highlighted, and then obviously, can't wait to talk about Detroit, Sonic, and Knuckles. It's good to see that name is catching on.
Yeah, so the rankings are pretty straightforward. I have created a RTM score, which is essentially just an aggregate weighted system that takes a look at a team's Vegas implied team total, takes a look at a player's production, expected production based off of his usage, and then it also takes a look at the defense that he's playing against, based off of their fantasy points per game rank. Combines all of that, gives us a score, and then we use that to inform the rankings. Keegan, really quickly, though, I'm sure somebody's first time ever clicking on one of our thumbnails, first time watching one of our videos, they're intrigued. What do you think the people should do at home if this is the first time they're trying out the Regression to the Mean podcast?
Yeah, you've heard it before. You've heard it on other YouTube channels. You'll hear it on ours. Maybe you're a repeat listener, and if you are, you can just skip this. But if you're new, checking out the channel, come down, sit for a couple minutes, listen to our rankings, hear us talk about Breece Hall, tell us why you should start Gibbs and Montgomery. We'll talk about why Achane is back in a really good spot. And let's see if we can help you win your matchup this week or avoid a catastrophic loss. And just give us your time of day. You've already signed into YouTube. You already kicked up on the couch, or you've already got your phone out. What's a couple minutes of your time giving to the new channel a shot? So if you like it, drop a comment. If you really like it, like the video. And if you really, really like it, subscribe, and then you'll know when we got our next episode dropped, and you won't miss any of our further episodes as we get down to the rest of the season.
Wow, that was one of your best ones. I think that might have been your best one ever. That was completely off the cuff, no script. I'm
just a professional panderer at this point.
That is skill.
Because you know what? I just have to convince my fiance that I can be a fantasy football host for the rest of my life. But to do that, I need the mean team to subscribe.
It's so good. Okay. We're going to kick things off here with tier 1 running backs 1 through 6. I've got Saquon Barkley, running back 1, Kyren Williams, running back 2. I got the king himself at running back 3, K9, Kenneth Walker 4, Bijan Robinson 5, Joe Mixon 6. Got to call out Saquon, Keegan, revenge. I like a good revenge game. And
oh my God, yeah.
The mother of them all. This is the mother of them all when it comes to revenge.
This is one of the biggest revenge games I could think of in the past couple of years, where I actually think a player might go out there and score 3 touchdowns.
Yes, like This is AJ Brown-esque when they traded AJ Brown.
Like,
I think it's that level of revenge for Saquon, in my opinion. It means even more. He was like a legit, really good player on kind of a rudderless ship. So
he was so good to them. He wanted to be a giant, like he wanted to be a lifer, and they were just like, no thanks.
Did you hear what he said about like if he'd get booed or not? He was like, I'm not getting booed. He's like, these fuckers are not booing me. I'm Saquon.
Hey, don't forget about the Mekhi Becton return back to MetLife, somewhat revenge game as well, too.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, we're going to move on. Kyren Williams, whole lot of green here. Vegas is not good against the run. Kyren has some of the best usage in fantasy. Only concern. Oh, my goodness. I'm a mess today. Corum and concern is what I just combined here. The only concern is the Blake Corum post-bye rookie bump that potentially could be lurking. I'm not going to try and bake that in and overthink it, but it's something I'm going to be paying attention to this weekend, Keegan.
Great RTM score for Kyren Williams. Obviously, the usage is just so insane. And hopefully, I know we talked about it in the wide receiver episode, but if Cooper Kupp is back, like that bodes well for Kyren as well, too. I think the whole offense itself should open up, and this is a good spot. Las Vegas has a frisky defense, but I'm not like overly concerned with them.
They're a run funnel. Like it's harder to throw on them, but you can run on them for sure. I continue to be incredibly high on Kenneth Walker. I am a big canine backer. And I was hip to him before he became the trending topic on Twitter this week with Fantasy Nerds, but I'm big on canine this week. Bijan is back in our good graces. Get another good matchup against Seattle. Tyler Algier is always lurking, but the red zone usage was super encouraging for Bijan. And then Joe Mixon is just a professional running back, man. They just want to run the rock.
Cincinnati holding Joe Mixon back? Like, let's talk about it.
They just want to run the rock with Joe Mixon, dude. Like, you got CJ Stroud, Stephon Diggs, Tank Bell. Nope, we just want to pound it with Joe Mixon. It's kind of hilarious, but yeah, he
looks faster this year too, which is like incredible to me. I'm not sure how it's possible, but you know what? Kudos to Joe Mixon. Maybe he was just in the wrong role the whole time.
My thing with Joe Mixon too, watching him, I was like, oh wow, they actually played it right. He didn't look unhealthy. Like they let him take a full 4 weeks, and he looked healthy. He didn't rush it back like Ekeler did last year. Ekeler should have just sat for like 6 weeks. He would have looked so much better. So good on them.
And his 2 full starts, he was the RB2 in week 1, and he was the RB2 in week 6. I mean, Joe Mixon is like so back on the menu. It's incredible. Do want to say sometimes people in the comments, like you guys didn't even spend time talking about it. Some of the top guys, like Derrick Henry, we don't need to say anything about it. Like he's scored a touchdown in every game. He will continue to score a touchdown in every game. That offense is so good. Even if Derrick Henry doesn't have a massive like rushing yardage game, they are going to get into the red zone and like they will score points. Tampa Bay just let up 27 points to the New Orleans Saints of all people. So they are for sure open for business for the King. And then talk about Bijan as well too. The Bijan touchdown and like official Bijan Robinson game was fantastic. The problem for me is the Algier usage is still creeping.
Yeah.
And it's a massive problem to his overall volume. And like, he just has to hit on what he's getting. I mean, you look at it right now, he's the fantasy points per game, 17, and expected fantasy points per game, 19, basically almost hitting exactly even on the opportunities given, which is great, but you'd like to see him maybe run a little hotter since you drafted him so high. I will say though, Seattle just got shredded 3 weeks in a row for 6.1 yards a carry by Detroit Giants, the New York Giants, and San Francisco. So good spot for Mr. Bijan.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. They ran the ball way more against the Panthers because the game script. I think we could see something similar. We'll see if this is a shootout, but Bijan looks good. He looked healthy. I'm excited about Bijan. So I've got the next tier of running backs here, tier 2, which is running backs 7 through 15. And by the way, the rankings are also in the show notes of this episode. So if you want to take a look at this, just look at them. They're in the rankings. I mean, the rankings are in the show notes. So feel free to click them. You should have access to them. So running backs 7 through 15, I've got Alvin Kamara, Brian Robinson, Chuba Hubbard, Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Devin Achane, and James Cook. So Alvin Kamara is playing right now. And he is doing nothing. I had some major infrastructure concerns about this offense, and this Saints team is falling apart right now. They just had Paulson Adebo get hurt and break his leg. Literally everyone's getting hurt. Rashid Shaheed's out for the rest of the year. Chris Olave concussion. Derek Carr is severely hurt. Their offensive line is just getting decimated by injuries.
They have like one starting offensive line from week 1 left at this point.
I think if you can trade Alvin Kamara over the next couple weeks, I would do it. The bottom is falling out on this team right now.
Yeah,
he's been amazing too. He's been the fantasy running back number 1 with like running back 1 usage too. So he's been awesome. But at least until Derek Carr comes back, I'm going to be very nervous about starting Kamara. I'm very high on Brian Robinson this week, Keegan. I've got him 11 spots ahead of ECR. Whole lot of green, dude. Carolina gives it the most. Yeah, they give it the most points to running backs. He's got awesome usage, and they have the best team total rank. He sat last week with his knee injury. I think he should be healthy. B-Rob is a must start, in my opinion, this week. Other guys in this tier, you got to call it the running backs in Detroit. Yeah, Chuba. I don't ever talk about Chuba, but Chuba's been amazing. Incredible usage, really good production. Washington gives up points to running backs. He is a firm set it and forget it RB1 right now, which is just kind of crazy to say out loud. I feel good about Breece Hall, tougher matchup. Tony Pollard's run out continues to be one of the more pure run outs I've ever seen. Tyjae Spears injures his hamstring. Buffalo has just an absolute cake run defense. They're basically a run funnel. So it's a good spot for Pollard. And then got to call out Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Sonic and Knuckles. Keegan, this has got to warm your heart. I've now got them back to back, which is something you've been asking for weeks.
That's all I care. I don't even care if Gibbs is the first one on the list. I just care that they're back to back.
Yep, they're basically even in usage and even in production. They're both ultra efficient. Monty's actually been more efficient. So it's crazy to see these two. People talk about two-headed monsters a lot. These are two-headed monsters. These guys are going to finish as top 12 running backs, which is very rare to see running backs do that. The last to do that is Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. They're going to do it together if they're healthy. I'll pause here. This tier is a lot of guys that you like. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just on Gibbs and David Montgomery, I mean, both of them have racked up at least 70 scrimmage yards in each game this season. David Montgomery is now up to 21 touchdowns in 21 games as a Detroit Lion. I mean, the guy just continues to find the end zone, and they want him in the end zone. This might be their toughest matchup so far of the year. Vikings are allowing 3.7 yards per carry, but I feel like they can run on anybody. I mean, they were doing tricks on Dallas last week, just unloading the clip offensively, and like I would not expect Ben Johnson to like falter to these disguises that Brian Flores has been putting out on tape. I think Lions are still in a really good spot here. Chuba Hubbard, I mean, their offensive line has been so much improved. They're opening up at like 2.1 or 2.4 yards before contact right now for Chuba Hubbard. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks has kind of like been activated. He's kind of in the waiting, but probably at least another week or two of like RB1 usage for Chuba Hubbard. I love that. Pollard is looking like Pollard. Shot out of a cannon last week. The way he was running is just incredible. So I love this tier of guys. The Kamara ranking was tough because you have to rank them because of the usage, but they're putting up a stinker right now, but I won't hold that against you. My only concern in this is Achane. I think it's great that he's going to be healthy. They're coming off a bye week. Maybe they got some stuff figured out for hopefully one of the last weeks without Tua, but good matchup for the team they're playing. Bad offensive environment if Huntley can't move the ball downfield. That's kind of my only concern in this tier.
Don't sleep on a quarterback after a bye who just got introduced to the offense.
Yeah, it's a lot of time for them to ramp and get more comfortable together. And Achane was obviously getting used to the point where he was getting injured. Like he was getting pretty banged up. So he's got an extra week of rest.
Yes.
I think it's still a good start, though. I'll be starting him.
I'm happy Mostert's back. Their run game looked so much better before the bye. Teron Armstead should be healthy. This team, not every team needs an early bye, but man, the Rams and the Dolphins needed an early bye. Big time. Like big time. If I've seen the teams that like are sitting there thinking they maybe have talent to get to the playoffs, like they desperately needed that bye. I'm keeping the light on for Achane for sure. I'm excited to see him and Mostert back in the fold together. And hopefully they're able to get some traction here. You can run on Indy. It's not a good defense. So we'll see. They've had a full 2 weeks to prep for this, essentially.
Any concern for Jimbo Cook after the Ray Davis smash week against the Jets?
Well, he popped up as a limited participant, right? Didn't Davis get hurt at practice?
Yeah, so I don't know if he like what his situation is. He might be limited. I'm just I love the usage for James Cook before he got banged up. I mean, they were using him in the red zone, goal line touches. So I'm still excited about it, but I'm more thinking like a little long term down the line, like any concern of Ray Davis there kind of coming in and taking over some work.
Oh, it's real. In many ways, you would think they're a good complement to each other. Bell cow James Cook. A lot of people don't think it's going to happen, even though he's shown that he can do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Ray Davis, limited participant with a calf injury. You never love to see that. Could be Achilles tendonitis they're lying to us about. Wait, what?
You're so scarred. PTSD.
Something to monitor. I am concerned, but I mean, James Cook's been awesome. They want to run the piss out of the ball. You can run it to an extent on Tennessee. I mean, like they're pretty good against running backs, but James Cook's role as a pass catcher, I feel like makes him very interesting to me, all things considered. Moving on to tier 3 here. It's my smallest tier, but they all are very similar in my opinion. I've got running backs 16 to 21. So I've got J.K. Dobbins at 16, Jordan Mason 17, Josh Jacobs 18, Kareem Hunt 19, Najee Harris 20, and James Conner 21. So Jordan Mason has really fallen off over the past couple of weeks. I know you and I both started him in some leagues. He doesn't really catch the ball. Really tough matchup against the Chiefs defense. He's now banged up. You're still playing him, right? Because he's just has a really good role to for the most part. But it kind of feels like this one's losing steam a little bit, all things considered. Now, maybe I'm just reverse jinxing and he has a great game against the Chiefs. That'd be great. Hand up. I'd love that. I'm really low on Josh Jacobs. I don't see how people are ranking him as a top 13 back. I don't get it, Keegan. Like 21 in expected fantasy points per game, 28 in fantasy points per game. Like, are you seeing anything here with Josh Jacobs that makes you think he's startable?
I think the thing with Josh Jacobs is like he's still touting the rock like Josh Jacobs. I mean, he's averaging like 91 and a half scrimmage yards a game. The problem is Jordan Love is addicted to throwing touchdowns. Like that's actually where the problem lies here.
Yeah. Jacobs doesn't score touchdowns, which is just...
that's where Josh Jacobs has kind of hit home for a lot of his like good seasons. Like not only just like rushing for 120 yards a game, but also scoring touchdowns. But Jordan Love is just addicted to throwing touchdowns. Doesn't matter if it's falling backwards, off his back foot, on the run. His wide receivers kind of know how to get home. So I can understand the ranking for Josh Jacobs ECR wise, but I respect that you have him knocked down a peg until he starts scoring touchdowns.
And of course, this will be the jinx. Like this is what
propels. I hope so. Hey, look, I'm starting.
I've got
him.
him.
So if I jinx him, I'm in.
J.K. Dobbins, great story. I've got him a little bit lower than like ECR. Great matchup. RB2 usage, RB1 production. He's been great. I don't top 12 seems a little rich for my blood, but I don't know. I could see it. Maybe I'm being a hater, but I'd rather play Achane over J.K. Dobbins this week.
No, I think how you've done this is there's a little bit more upside baked into these guys above Dobbins, especially Mason too. Like I'm obviously so bummed that the starts have not gone the way I wanted him, but yeah, he's not Christian McCaffrey. He was never going to be, and he was a great start for the beginning. And then people like Kareem Hunt, Najee Harris, James Conner, they're all just like high floor, like lower ceiling plays that will get a lot of volume. So I'm cool with this territory that you have them all in.
Kareem Hunt's been awesome. My question is, post-bye, what does that role look like? CEH is back. They don't love CEH, but they trust him. So
yeah, I need it to be Hunt. I don't care who it is, but who they think it is, but I need it to be Hunt. So
imagine CEH back in the fold. Imagine us leading the waiver show with CEH again. That'll be fun. Okay, so tier 4, right? This is a bit of a longer tier. Hard to really delineate amongst a lot of these guys, but I've got running backs 22 to 32. I've got Bucky, Irving, Tank Bigsby, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, Javonte Williams, Tyrone, Tracy, Austin Ekeler, Alexander Mattison, Ty Chandler, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb. Okay. Bucky Irving, hell of a story. How you think this one plays out against the Ravens' staunch rush defense when he's got Sean Tucker and Rachaad White potentially playing? I don't know. You have to rank Bucky as the clear one, but man, I don't know how this one's going to go. Keegan, do you have any read on this? Like the three-headed monster?
Obviously, if you have Bucky Irving on your team, it's probably because you were stashing due to Rachaad White, or you were just like picking him out the waiver and you have him as like kind of an other option play. Like my take on what I'm doing with Bucky Irving this week is not playing him just because I don't need to. If you need to, I get it.
Yeah.
And like waiting to see how this plays out. I think they're going to get down to Baltimore and it's going to be a lot of pass stuff. And you know who's good in the pass game, unfortunately, is Rachaad White. So who knows how this all looks. We talked about it on the wide receiver episode, but it's going to be a good game and spot for Chris Godwin, potentially Mike Evans too, if he plays. But I'm going to probably sit Bucky this weekend and just play it safe so I don't have to deal with it. Todd Bowles already said we're going to ride the hot hand. Is that Sean Tucker most beloved running back who never was of the dynasty community?
The dynasty community.
Oh my gosh. Or is it going to be Bucky? Or is Rachaad White going to have to step in and catch some balls because they're going to be throwing to the running backs because they're down to Baltimore?
That would be the funniest. That'd be the funniest outcome because literally everyone's like, "Oh, Rachaad White's never going to see a touch again." It'd be hilarious if he had his classic like 8 reception, 85-yard receiving.
This is like the kind of game environment to me that I think
he would do that in.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is really murky territory here. I'm excited to see Tank Bigsby. I think it's a good matchup for him, and ETN's pretty banged up. I don't think the Dearness Johnson stuff is like worrisome at all. I just think the game environment and what it got into, and like this is similar to what I'm talking about with Rachaad White potentially being a thing. Like they had to throw the ball so much, like they were getting beat up, and they couldn't just commit to the run with Tank Bigsby. So Dearness Johnson's a little bit better in the pass pro. Like he's in on passing plays. Tank Bigsby doesn't have that trust yet in his second year, so I'm not worried about that being a consistent issue for them. For Tank Bigsby going forward.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't like. I want to get excited about Bigsby, but if they are in a negative game script, he's not going to play.
Games, like I know Trevor has been getting a lot of crap this year, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, deservedly so, have been getting a lot of crap. But of all games to be in a positive game script, this would be the one.
New England's not
playing good. New England, run the ball, don't overthink it, play some solid defense, and I think Bigsby can have a fine game.
Chase Brown and Zach Moss. So a lot has been made about the Chase Brown usage, but Zach Moss was playing hurt, and he also fumbled the ball, and they kind of benched him. So is the usage for real for Brown, or was this fumble injury related? That's the question. Because people are high on Brown. Brown has not played that well. Now, he broke a big run off at the end of the game when they basically let him score. He has not been that good of a running back, though.
Yeah, I don't think I think he's just getting buoyed by a really good offensive environment, and like they have the ball a ton because their defense can't stop anybody, which is great for Chase Brown. I'm not trying to take that away from his fantasy role. But yeah, was it because Zach Moss fumbled? But like watching Chase Brown is a roller coaster because at one moment he's like getting stopped 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Next, he's breaking 3 tackles and getting 10 yards over expected. So it's weird. It's a roller coaster bounce back kind of yo-yo type running back. But I'll call this out now just so we can get out of the way. But Javonte Williams is having a pretty good game.
He's having a good game. I wasn't super down on him. I was basically with consensus in my comment. It won't be a fun start. That was you know what I mean? Going into it, you're not going to be super juiced that Javonte is in your starting lineup, but you can't really bench him. He's gotten good usage, and he's been good, relatively speaking, for some of these games. And he's got top 24 usage. You know, regression is coming for some of these guys to an extent.
The other person I wanted to talk about is Ty Chandler. We talked about this week
a lot. We talked about it a lot.
What's going to happen here? There's a lot of points that are going to be scored in this matchup. You know, is Aaron Jones really banged up? There's rumors of him being on the IR. I haven't really seen many more than just rumors, but they signed Cam Akers too.
Yeah, they just picked him up. They just traded him. And okay, so here's the deal. Like Jones got in a limited today, I think.
From a limited? Okay.
I think he got in a limited, and he was DMP yesterday. He has hip and hamstring issues. I get it. This is a big game against the Lions, but kind of feels risky to play him. I know they had the bye last week, but I just feel like it would make sense to kind of put Jones on ice for a week, roll with Chandler, Akers, Gaskins, but I don't know. They could play him. KOC keeps hinting at it. He's like, there's optimism. He's very clear that there's optimism, but if not, they trust Ty. And from the way they phrase it, I think Ty Chandler would see like 60, 65% of the carries if he were to get the start.
And if you did pick him up on the waivers, I know I did it in 2 leagues. Like this could also just be like a sit and wait moment. Like maybe you don't need to start Ty Chandler. Detroit's run defense is really good, so it's gonna be a tough spot. Even if Aaron Jones is healthy and plays, like it would be a tough spot for him. Even though he's obviously a better running back, but it's a tough matchup.
Tier 4, I think, is the last group of guys that you actually can start. I mean, actually, Tier 5. Wait, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Tier 5 is kind of the last tier of guys I think you could even get away with a spot start. I've got Devin Singletary at 33, Raheem Mostert 34, Gibson 35, Algier 36, Charbonnet 37, Tyler Goodson 38, 39 Ray Davis. So Devin Singletary's likely back. What's the split going to be? Because he's been fringe RB2 usage when he's healthy. A lot of people are saying that Tyrone Tracy completely took his lunch. There's some underlying stuff that says Tyrone Tracy doesn't break tackles, right? So he's been good. He's looked good, especially as a receiver. But Brian Dable loves Singletary. So I think he could probably get away with starting him if he plays this week. Do you have any thoughts on that backfield?
No, it's so weird. There's a beat reporter who covers both the Jets and the Giants, Connor Hughes, and so I have his Jets notifications on, but I get the Giants stuff too. And there was some early beat reporter stuff that was like, when Singletary returns, it's going to be like in favor of Tyrone Tracy. Like I don't know how they could do that. That seems silly to just like kick Devin Singletary to the curb, but I would predict it probably closer to like 60-40, maybe like Singletary being the 60. It's a good opportunity for both of them, like in like flex spots this week, but I'm not like dying to start them.
The word hot hand gets thrown around a lot. That does feel like kind of.
I'm so tired of that in the NFL coaching sphere. That I want to eliminate that from NFL coach speak. Hot hand. We're just going to ride the hot hand.
This does feel like a hot hand backfield, though. Like if Singletary's cooking, they're going to stay with Singletary. If Tracy's cooking, I feel like they'd go with Tracy. Dable kind of feels like that kind of coach.
Yeah, game environment too. I mean, that's another thing. Like, is the implied total is so low for this game, like comparative to other games, but it's because of New York. But hey, Malik Neighbors is back. Like maybe they score an early touchdown and they find themselves going back and forth. That could be pretty good for Tyrone Tracy. I feel like if they're passing the ball and they have to keep up with Philly, maybe he stays involved. But if they get out to an early lead, maybe Devin Singletary starts to pound the rock. It's so hard. Like, how do you really predict that? That's also, there's so many murky backfields in these 2 tiers that we just talked about.
Yeah, I would say overall, like the funniest outcome would be the Giants win this game. Because it's the Saquon revenge narrative. It would be hilarious if the guy they signed in Devin Singletary played really well and they'd won.
Maybe we're ignoring the Giants revenge narrative themselves. Just
Joe Shane. You got to stick it to him. Other guys in this tier, Tyler Algier has been awesome. So Atlanta has a great implied team total. Seattle's been gashed on the ground. Algier was awesome last week in tandem with Bijan Robinson. That doesn't feel that sustainable, but I mean, the man's going to continue to see the rock. And shit, dude, like Algier's playable this week. I think he really is. So I don't know. Like I feel like Algier's kind of the cutoff. I don't really want to play Antonio Gibson, I'll be honest, but you kind of have to rank him there because he might just be the bell cow. He probably is going to be the bell cow. And Jacksonville's defense sucks, so you can't be super low on him. Tyler Goodson's someone you can get excited about, but he's basically only produced as a receiver, and I don't think Anthony Richardson's going to be checking it down to Tyler Goodson, right?
Yeah.
So
if he's checking it down to anybody, it better be Josh Downs and not.
But look at Goodson's in a hell of a matchup because Sermon's banged up. JT's not going to play. Miami's been the 3rd best defense to running backs. Like that's a good spot for Goodson, pun intended, right? But
yes.
Man,
Tyler, good spot.
But he doesn't really rush that well, and he's mostly a receiver. And I just don't. Is A-Rich really going to be checking it down? Probably not. So tough, man. Ray Davis looked good though. I don't think you can play him, but he looked good.
Is it Tyler or is it Trey Goodson?
I think it's Tyler.
I thought it was Trey, unless I'm wrong.
No,
I'm thinking Trey Sermon, right?
Trey Sermon. Tyler Goodson. Dude.
Whoops.
Okay, so wide receivers. I mean, running backs. Oh my god, I'm so brain dead. 40 through 44. This is your stash tier. I've got 3 guys that could be leading the waiver wire potentially. So I've got Justice Hill, Jalen Warren, Blake Corum, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jaleel McLaughlin, and D'Ernest Johnson. So the guys that I was mentioning in terms of waiver wire, Blake Corum, Jalen Warren, CEH, all things considered. Blake Corum's the most interesting pick here. I think Jalen Warren is poking around and interesting too. He's now healthy. Russell Wilson's going to play quarterback, so check down Charlie is in full effect. And then CEH. I'm curious to know what role he plays. He's had historically seen a lot of targets in the pass game as a third down guy. I think he could ice P. Ryan completely. I'll pause. Anyone in this tier speaking your language? Anyone I'm missing? Will you pick up any of these guys before? Like Corum's interesting. If Corum's on the waiver wire and you have a spot, I think you should grab him.
Yeah, it's just so hard to think about Corum as a pickup until I see something change with Kyren Williams' usage. I mean, he's just been so phenomenal. I did notice no Sean Tucker towards this back end. And I think, we covered that in depth. It's just a really murky backfield situation that you're going to have to navigate. And I think this week will be a good tell of how that's going to happen. Just a tough matchup for all of them. There's a couple guys outside of this ranking that I think are more important. People like Vidal, how's that usage going to continue going?
Yeah.
The Isaac Garendo, that's interesting as well too. And then Emmanuel Wilson is somebody I actually want to call out. I was curious to see if you're going to rank him. We talked a lot about Josh Jacobs, but
he's close.
I know Marshawn Lloyd is back and activated, but if anything happens to Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson is got that role on lock. But yeah, definitely some stash guys. Jalen Warren of the listed here is probably my most interesting have on your roster and pick up, kind of guy. And make sure he's not on the waivers headed into the week so you can get ahead of it.
Vidal and Sean Tucker, you can literally just swap them in for anyone here on this list. These are backups that are interesting, in my opinion. Backups that are interesting. Exciting whites. Backups that are interesting.
Backups that are interesting.
These guys are all guys you want to get in front of on the waiver wire, in my opinion. I don't think Corum's going to ice Kyren. I'm just saying, knock on wood here. Kyren hurts his foot. Corum is going to be a max play on waivers.
Yep. Too bad I'm all out of money.
But Corum's probably free, if he's out there right now. So it's just worth the stash. The one league that I've Kyren in, I'm kicking myself that I don't have Corum on that team, just as insurance at this point. Parker's hasn't won a game and he hasn't dropped Corum, so that's fun. It's great.
Home leagues, man.
Yeah,
home
great.
leagues, dude.
Great guy. Literally has 0 wins, and he's like, "Gotta keep Corum. This is what I need.
Gotta hold on to him." Yeah. You got the home league effect, and he's a Rams fan. So.
Oh man. 44 running backs. I usually do 50. I feel like I shortchanged the Kamani Vidal discussion. But he's a stash.
Okay. I think the discussion is not fully there yet. No. It will be interesting. I just think J.K. Dobbins is they're not really slowing down his usage. I mean, he's still
they're picking it up.
touches a game right now, and he's getting more touches every week. And he looks healthier every week. So the Vidal thing was a cool story, and he catches his first touch. His first NFL touch turns into a touchdown. That was awesome. But
all right,
can't really do much with it right now.
No. These are all the 0 RB. My team is 3-3. I desperately need a good player to get hurt, guy. And you don't want that. You never want to admit that, but that's basically what this tier is. All right, Keegan, thank you for joining as always. Appreciate it, man. I always learn something new talking ball with you, man. So thank you for jumping. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time.